my sins. Really, oh well, we have all these anticipation already, it's going to go well. It means I study rocks and mountain ranges, and rocks are great things to study because they never complain at you. I can take a hammer to my rocks, I can crush them, I can zap them with a laser beam, I can even melt them, and I can rest at ease that I'm never going to be in front of the ethics committee. So rocks are great things. I've been lucky in my career. I've sort of studied around the world, in Asia in particular, looking at rocks moving. Now that's actually bad news, because if a rock moves, it means you're probably in a landslide or an earthquake, or maybe both at once, which is really double bad news. But anyway, I've been lucky. I've been around Asia, and I've been to some wonderful places, and I've been to some dodgy places too. I've worked in 4 countries before I arrived in somewhere that called itself a democracy, and that was the Islamic Republic of Iran. That's the truth. And before I got to Iran, in other places I've been variously arrested, deported, shot at, admittedly not all on the same day, and I've been picked up by the police on numerous occasions. And bizarrely, the worst place in the world for being picked up by the police, at least if you're me, is the metro system of Baku, Azerbaijan. And it's happened on many occasions, so much so I know far more about the workings of the Azerbaijan police force than anyone ever wants to in a lifetime. For example, they do rank by belly. The more senior you are, the bigger belly you have. You don't actually know whether you have to grow the belly first and then you get promoted, or whether you get promoted and you get awarded a new belly like something else that you wear for pride. But anyway, the first policeman to stop me down there, he was young, he was lean, mean, keen, he had no belly. And after he'd been rifling through my wallet for a few minutes looking for bombs and guns or whatever, he got bored and he passed me up to his boss. And I knew it was the boss because he had the belly. He had little sort of ellipses of flesh poking out between his shirt. It was quite off-putting and mesmerising at the same time. By now I'm actually getting a bit worried. I'm starting to write the first pages of my prison memoir. I'm trying not to remember all the Rimbits and the Shawshank Redemption. Luckily after a few minutes he gets bored and he thinks, okay, I don't know what to do, I'll pass this guy up to the big boss. And I know he's the big boss because he has the big belly. And he also has that knack that sometimes comes with authority, that he can say more with fewer words. So he doesn't actually speak to me at all. He just dismisses me contemptuously with a flick of his fingers, like that, like he's shaking piss off his hands. And I'm free to go, so they let me go down to the station platform to catch my train. Well, a minute later, I'm stopped by another policeman. By now, this is twice in 15 minutes, for God's sake. And I begin to understand what's happening. That although I am a middle-class, middle-aged white man, I have just been the victim of racial profiling. Now, with incidents like this under my belt, I think I've got a pretty finely tuned sense for danger and trouble when I go and do my field work. Buildings covered in barbed wire. These are bad news. Signs that show cameras crossed out. These are very bad news. I was a bit freaked out tonight. I can read the words for no photography in 6 languages. Men carrying guns. Unsurprisingly, these are very bad news indeed. So when I finally get to Iran and we're working in this remote and beautiful valley, and then we come across a compound and it's covered in razor wire, and it's got a sign outside saying no photography, helpfully even in English in the middle of bloody nowhere. And yes, there's a man at the gate and he's carrying a machine gun. I get the alarm bells ringing. I know that we're in trouble. And I say this to my colleague Mortazar, and I try to say it as calmly as I can, and I'd like to say I said something brave. What I think I actually said was, let's run away. And to his credit, Mortazar said, in fluent English, and here I am quoting pretty much word for word, he said, "This is a free country. we'll go where we bloody well like. Anyway, an hour later, we're still at the police station down the valley. I'm outside. I'm like the naughty child while the grown-ups are inside working out what to do. And there's a lot of shouting, and I don't understand a word, but I can tell it's not happy festival shouting. There's a bit of an edge to it. So I'm getting worried. I'm writing the second chapter of my prison memoir. I remember all the bad bits in Midnight Express and so on. And then suddenly it's all smiles, and they let us go. We're free to go and hit the road. Except that's a phrase I don't like using in Iran because the driving is abysmal. And if I die young, well, all right. If I die middle-aged, it's likely to be in a car crash in somewhere like Iran or China, where I also work. And the problem in China is sort of rank and status. And there's almost a kind of Confucian hierarchy to the way things are done on the roads, that if you're in the scooter, you have to overtake the bicycle. It's in the highway code. It's part of the driving test. And if you're in a bus, you've got to overtake that scooter. And so on, a strictly defined system of rank, until the Communist Party official in his chauffeur-driven Audi who has to overtake the world. Karl Marx never imagined the rise of communism would be quite like this. But that's China. In Iran, the problem is God. Or should I say, before I get into any trouble up there, that the problem is people's attitude towards sort of free will. And the idea runs something like this, that if I overtake around this blind corner next to a cliff, it's God's will whether or not there's a truck coming the other way. So I may as well overtake anyway, because I've got nothing to lose. And I've realised over the years that there's absolutely nothing I can do about this. That I don't believe in lucky charms, I don't believe in good or bad omens. Well, actually, except for magpies. I must admit, I've got a thing about magpies, like in that children's rhyme, 1 for sorrow, 2 for joy, 3 for a girl, 4 for a boy. If I see a single magpie, I saw one this morning, in fact, I think that the first bad thing that comes into my head is going to happen because of that bloody magpie. And you can see where this leads, it kind of escalates. So you start thinking, first thing in your head, I'm going to have a car crash. And I hate seeing magpies in Iran or China for this reason. I've learned to sort of cope with this over the years. I have a strategy whereby I think of super bad things first. So I see the magpie and I think, that's it. A great earthquake is going to strike here tonight. And then I think, but no, I'm in Iran or China and I'm here to study the earthquakes because they have them, so it might actually happen. So I've got this trumped. I see the magpie and I imagine that a giant asteroid is going to strike the Earth and mark the end of the world in the next 24 hours, all because of that bloody magpie. And that's got it under control, but at the same time, as a scientist, as a geologist, I'm thinking, but what a great research opportunity. If I had private knowledge and it was going to be the end of the world, what a head start I've got on the research. But then, if a few problems come to mind, like, how would I convince anyone to fund it? That's important. And there are further problems that rather bother me, like, who's going to publish the work when I've done it? It's been the end of the world. The one that really gets me is, who's going to cite my paper? It's a pity because, for a geologist, 2 months of rock banging together, I mean, what better research topic can I have? I certainly have no problems demonstrating impact of my research. Because in the end, everything comes down to impact these days in your research, or if it's not impact, then it's poor cousin, which is outreach. And outreach is good, and outreach we can do all the time. And you may be thinking of yourselves as a comedy club audience tonight, but you're not. To me, you are an outreach and public engagement opportunity. And I'd like to thank you all publicly now, because you will be appearing in my annual staff review report. I'll leave you with this final, slightly chilling thought that in the run-up to doing this spot tonight, I have had more formal training as a stand-up comedian than I've ever had as a university lecturer.